Yesterday, we talked about proving triangles were congruent, but we had to say that all 6 corresponding parts matched up to say the triangles were congruent by definition of congruent triangles. So do you guys remember that congruent means the exact same size and shape?
Yes.
Good with that. Okay, exact same size and shape. But do we really need to know all 6 corresponding parts in order to say 2 triangles are congruent?
Nope.
No, we actually do not. So yesterday we learned that if we had all 3 pairs of sides congruent to all 3 pairs of sides, all 3 pairs of angles congruent to all 3 pairs of angles, then the 2 triangles were congruent. But we don't have to have all 6. There are 5 ways we can prove triangles are congruent. SSS, SAS, ASA, AAS, and HL, and you'll sometimes see HL as RHL. So I will explain what all that means. So one of the ways to prove 2 triangles are congruent is by side, side, side. We abbreviate it SSS. So if you know that 3 sides of one triangle is congruent to 3 sides of another, you can say the triangles are congruent by side, side, side. You don't have to know all the angles. If you know that 3 sides of one triangle equal 3 sides of another, the triangles are congruent by side, 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 SSS. Are we good with that? So 3 things instead of knowing all 6. Okay? Another way to say triangles are congruent is side, angle, side. So if you have 2 sides and the included angle, it has to be the included angle. You have to be really careful about that. So 2 sides and the included angle. So those 2 sides, when they come together, do you see how they create this angle? If I were to draw a line through this side and a line through that side that's marked, do you see how it creates that angle?
Yeah.
Okay. So for it to be side, angle, side, the angle has to be in between those 2 sides that are marked. So if you know this side equals this side equals this side, and then we have the included angle, you can say the triangles are congruent by side, angle, side. It's really important that you notice the angle is included, because if you have 2 sides and then an angle, that is angle side, side, ASS, that spells a bad word. So we're going to learn about that in a minute. So the angle has to be in between the 2 sides. Do you see the difference?
Do you have to have the angle?
You have to have the angle. You cannot just have 2 sides.
Why?
Because that's not enough information. I could say this side is congruent to this side. Hang on, let me try to draw something.
You can make it a nice sauce.
I don't know. I can't like this side congruent to this side, but not necessarily that 3rd side would have to be congruent. You have to have 3 pieces of information. Have to have 3 pieces of information in order to prove triangles are congruent. 2 pieces of information, not enough. Not enough information. I'll try to find something and I'll show you.
Okay.
So if I'm looking at this, can you tell where the included angle would be on this one? Would it be I, H, or G?
G.
G, good. So the included angle has to be in between. What about this one? I. What about this one? Okay, good. So make sure it's the included angle when you're looking, because you cannot prove triangles congruent by ASS. Okay, if I have sides YE and ES, can you tell that the included angle would be E, the letter that's repeated? Okay. If I have ES and YS, what do you think the included S? And then Y. Okay, good. Just making sure. All right, you can also prove triangles congruent by side or angle, side angle. So I have an angle, I have 2 angles, and then the side is in between the 2 angles. Do you see how the side is marked in between the 2 angles? Because we're also going to have another way called angle, angle, side, and the side would not be in between, so you have to make sure you can tell if the side is in between or not. So if 2 angles in the included side equal 2 angles in the included side, you can say the triangles are congruent by angle, side, angle. So can you tell where the included side would be? GI. Can you guys tell? What about this one? Okay, what about this? Okay. So the included side has to be in between. Because we're also going to learn another way that's angle side, and the side would not be included. Does that make sense? So the included side has to be in between the two angles. Okay, we can also prove triangles congruent by angle side. So if you have two angles in the non-included side, two angles in the non-included side, you can say the triangles are congruent by angle side. By the way, if you put side angle, that's still okay. All right, there is no such thing as ASS postulate. You can never prove triangles congruent by ASS, angle side. That means that angle is not in between the two sides, it's outside. Sometimes what I do on my paper, like when I'm trying to figure out why the triangles are congruent, I can tell that that's an angle marking, so I'll put the letter A. I can tell that's a side marking, so I'll put the letter S. I can tell that's a side marking, so I'll put the letter S. Can you see that spells a bad word?
Yeah.
So if it spells a bad word, the answer is no. You cannot prove them congruent. But there is one time that it's okay. So if that angle happens to be a right angle, so if it spells ASS, but that angle happens to be a right angle, it's okay. We just don't call it ASS. We call it RHL or HL, which stands for right hypotenuse leg.
You are currently the only person in this conference.
So I always tell my students it's okay to be an ASS if you're right.
Come on, just say it.
It's okay to be an ASS if
You
you're
have to
right.
say
You have to say it. I don't
No,
understand. I don't
No,
understand.
it's
anything
only
you're
okay
saying.
to be an angle side if you're right. So if it spells a bad word, if you see angle side and it spells a bad word, look to see if that angle is a right angle. If it's a right angle, guys, if it's a right angle, it's yes, and you call it HL or RHL. I think the ACT calls it HL. I think the EOI test when we used to have it said RHL. So we're not taking EOI tests anymore. You'll be taking the ACT test, and I think it just says HL. You will.
We have to.
You have to. Okay, also, you can never prove triangles congruent by angle. So there's two ways you can never prove triangles congruent. Angle, or ASS. It's only okay to be an ASS if you're what?
Right.
If you're right. Okay. So the reason you cannot prove triangles congruent by angle, you could have a teeny tiny triangle that all the angles are 60, and you could have a great big triangle where all the angles are 60, but those angles would not necessarily equal each other. So you can never prove triangles congruent by angle, or angle side. It's only okay to be an ASS if you're right. Okay, so we've got these ways to prove triangles congruent: side, angle, side, angle, side, angle, side, RHL or HL. You can never prove triangles congruent by ASS or AAA. These are the types of problems you're going to have. So you're going to have to decide if these triangles can be proven congruent. If they can, then you tell me side, side angle, or whatever. If they cannot, you tell me no. So if I'm looking at this one, sometimes it's nice to put marks on your paper. So if you see that's a side mark, you can do an S. That's an angle mark. That's a side mark. So do you see SAS? Yep. Same with this one. You have to make sure both triangles are the same. So why do you think those triangles are congruent? SAS, side, angle, side. Okay, let's look at these two right here. So what kind of marking is this?
Angle.
Angle. What about this one? Uh-oh. Is that a bad word?
Yes.
Is it okay?
No.
No, because that's not a right angle. It's never okay to be an ASS unless you're right. So that's no. Okay, what about this one? What kind of mark is that? Angle. So why do you think AAS? Good. Angle, side. If you ever said side, angle, that's okay too. What about this one? What kind of mark?
It's side.
Side. Good. So angles are marked with humps. Sides are marked with slashes. So that would be side. Okay, this I have angle.